and welcome to this 12th talk in the series Mind Management Techniques, wherein we are exploring, according to the Vedanta knowledge, the inner dimensions of our being, what we are beyond our physical body. And just to recap, we say that those seekers of truth who went within themselves, dived deep within their own minds, and explored, reached a conclusion, an experience where they said and reported through our scriptures that we are not only a physical being, a physical body, but behind this there's a mental body with our emotions and intellectual capacities and our moral and ethical dimensions of our being. But beyond that is something even more profound, which is the self, the real self of man. And they describe that state of being with words like the Atman, the self, the soul of man, the real man. Real in the sense that which is permanent, eternal, immortal. And of course, they also discovered that all those little expressions of that energy that we manifest or express, activities, feelings, thoughts, knowledge, happiness, beauty, purity, freedom that we express through our thoughts and words and deeds are only a minute fraction of that infinite reservoir of what we really are. And that is a very profound discovery, so to say, because all of us want to be free, all of us want to be great, all of us want to know infinitely, omniscient, omnipresent. That is somehow built into our spiritual DNA. And we have been seeking for ourselves, so to say, trying to express ourselves. But being ignorant of our higher nature, we thought we are this body and mind complex, and we are very sincerely trying to express that at this physical and mental level only. And not any single person has ever been able to succeed in that attempt, because the infinite cannot be manifested in finite things. That's contradictory. So, when they made that profound discovery, that was just like out of this world experience for them, literally. Many of them merged themselves into that experience, and the body dropped off, and they never came back to this physical existence anymore. But there are a few who are chosen, designated to be the world teachers, and they had that capacity to descend back into this physical body and into this our everyday life, so to say, and they tried to express as best as they could that profound experience which is even beyond the mind, using the human language which is not developed for expressing such things, because our human language is to deal with this world around us. So through those recordings of their experiences and teachings, that's what our scriptures are, we get a hint only of something far superior, far more sublime, that is the foundation of what we really are. And they said that eternal, immortal state of existence is where we have come from, and that is what sustains us at every moment, and ultimately all of us will return to that. And so that's a very uplifting, profound idea, that man is really divine. Man is ever free. Man is the source of all beauty. That man is not a little something that has popped in this world from somewhere we do not know, and we have this existence where we are chasing after food, shelter, clothing, and things that people do, and then we disappear from this world. Something they go to heaven, something that if you don't do very well you might go to hell, and others don't know where they go. In so much ignorance we are. Some feel that we are sinners and we must repent, and all that type of negative ideas are there. Others think that somehow or the other they must do something, activities to go to heaven where they will live for happily forever after type of thing. But the Vedic teachers, the rishis, and incarnations of God like Christ and Buddha, they say that whatever we are seeking for is really within us. So, be a light unto thyself. That's the last teaching of Lord Buddha to his disciple Ananda. Whatever you are seeking is within you. So, when we read these things, it is very, very empowering, so to say, because suddenly we are not depending on something outside to empower us. Okay, it's something within me, so it's within my control. And it is something that is already available to me. Whether I access it now or not is another question, but it is something that will not be taken away from me also. And when you think so deeply about its nature, understand, get a glimpse of it in our intellectual understanding, even the profound nature of this self or the Atman or the real man, that idea, when it is energized and infused by and made alive by our constant contemplation on it, will wake up and it will demand to be addressed. You cannot ignore it for any longer. For example, any idea, and we discussed in the last class, which has transformed us into what we are, whether it's a professional vocation or something that we ran after and chased. It could have been a house, it could have been a car, it could have been a phone. At some point you saw an advertisement or got acquainted with it, and then you learned a little bit more about it, and at some point a desire arose in your mind that I should have it, and then you made that effort to acquire it, whether taking a bank loan or this, but it grabs your whole attention and you cannot ignore it until you get it. That's how a lot of things happen in our everyday life. If that is so with things of this world which will eventually be taken away from us, how much more worthwhile it is to invest our time and energy into something which is far superior to anything this world can ever give to us, and which will not be taken us even when death comes and takes this body away from us. So from all practical points of view, this is in the search or pursuit of realizing this true nature of our own self is an exercise and an effort worth investing time and energy into. So that's what religions or spirituality proposes to us. Well, many people hear and read all these books we discussed last week also, but somehow those ideas don't really grab us by the throat, so to say, and demand that attention and action. So it's there somehow, it's in the background, and this world is more real for us. God is there, the soul is there. We attend to that on our Sunday churches or go to the temple on a particular day. We do a little bit of puja morning and evening, but more than that, it is not occupying and commanding that much time and energy as our everyday things do, like doing the jobs. How do we make a gradual transformation without disturbing ourselves from the very basic food, clothing and shelter? Not overdoing those things. We'll find that so much time we give to these things in excess of what they really require, because we don't have anything else to do, so somehow we keep ourselves busy with this. But if this idea takes possession of your mind, so that you get possessed by it, or it's like Sri Ramakrishna says, we get mad after that idea. And he says in a beautiful way, in this world everyone is mad. People are mad after food or clothing or shelter or money or name or fame or material possessions. I also am mad, he says, but I am mad after God. And after all, my madness is better than other people's madness, because I get something which the world cannot take away from me, something more superior than what the world can give. So, this pursuit of self-knowledge, freedom, how do we jolt ourselves and shake ourselves and become awake to that? We talked about that little story I told 2 weeks back about the zoo where all these lions are there, they're born, they're happy doing all these various types of activities and being part of the system and maintaining the system and improving the system. And so we are like that, we are born in this world and all these are part of that same zoo, but we are busy with building a society or community or city or means of improving the quality of our life here. How many are there who are trying to say that, no, this is a zoo, still a zoo, it's a prison and we have to get out of it? How many are trying to find a means to get out of it? Understand this world, the real freedom is beyond the world. So, unless that awakening takes place, we'll be blissfully happy in ignorance in this world. That wall which separates us from that real freedom is the wall of Maya or ignorance. And what is that? The sense of I and mine in relation to this body-mind complex. So I'm born with that idea, I'm a physical being and I have a mental faculty, and somewhere there is an I sense of some consciousness is there, and we attach ourselves to various things of this world and these are mine, and these are my possessions and I'm comfortable with that, and the more I have that, the more secure I feel, and that's how this ignorance sort of has got hold of us by the throat, so to say, while the real freedom is beyond this. So, when we read the scriptures, when we see the lives of people who have gone outside and they report, and suddenly some previous experiences of this life and previous lifetimes suddenly make sense. Yes, I understand that this is not where freedom is, because at every moment when I'm trying to get freedom, I face a wall. When I try to get some knowledge, I see a wall of ignorance there. Everywhere there's a limitation there. So, it's not possible to achieve that in this physical body or in this mental body. And suddenly this refreshing news comes from some source, and you say, wow, that makes sense. When that idea resonates with us deeply, at a deeper level, not at a just dry intellectual level, because that fades away very quickly. You hear it, in, as they say, through this ear and it goes out of the other ear, and we are very much conditioned to this way of living, and that's how society has also programmed us that yes, you're a child, you grow up, you go through these various schools of education, whether it's kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, university, get a job, and they make a list of a plan for us more or less. You get a job, have a family, educate them, and all those things you do, and you serve a useful role in the society, and if you do all these things, then all the boxes are ticked off and you are successful. And then you retire and you live, and that's how it happens to everyone, and that's how it will happen to me, and that's my lot, I take it. Like all the sheep going to the slaughterhouse, we see they are going, but this is how it is here. That type of programming and conditioning is in the mind of most people. Now and then some sheep will jump out of the line and says, I'm not going to go down the slaughterhouse. And everyone says, what's wrong with that fellow? He's mad, he's a rebel, or whatever is there. Bring him in there, back in queue. So society will try to force us back into the system, because society is interested in its own self, its own perpetuation, so to say, survival, not to us. We are just used and discarded, throw away type of mentality is there. So, how do we break free? That will come from within us. We might say we want freedom of expression, freedom of this, freedom in the society. They will give you a little bit of freedom just to keep you happy, but absolute freedom is not available here. But that we can't give up that idea of that freedom, because that's somehow built into our system. Freedom is the song of the soul. It will cry for it. At some point, we have to attend to that. So, if that is the goal, whether this life or many, many lifetimes, then like we said, it's better to get cracking on the job, invest the time and energy and get done with it, rather than suffer and get knocked around in this world and find ultimately this is all a humbug, but it's not nothing but a humbug in this world. So that type of awakening has to come. And once that idea sort of awakens a little bit, we must grab it with both hands, so to say. So, how does it happen? In the Vedanta sadhana, constantly listening or reading about the spiritual topics brings out to the surface of your mind, the conscious mind, samskaras impressions from previous lifetimes. For example, every time you go to an elderly person, you ask about life and they will tell in a very simple summary, this is all nothing. Okay? Everything is transitory and they know they are about to exit. But when they're born again in the next lifetime, no, this world is beautiful and I'm going to go and have a great time, and then they go through these experiences and 95% for misery, 5% happiness, so to say like this, and they get disillusioned with the world and they exit again. But after many rounds of similar process, the soul becomes a little wiser. At some point in the young age, he'll also say, I have understood because of my previous experience that is the fate that awaits me. So he or she is alert in the beginning. Now capitalize on that, listening to that, reflecting on that, thinking on that, and those samskaras, the impressions from previous lifetime, that wisdom that we have accumulated from previous experiences will rise to the surface and put some warning signs. There's danger down there. Ultimately, death of this body is going to take everything that we acquire physically in this world. So, do you really want to invest so much time and energy into this, or shall we invest something, that time and effort, into something higher? So, Shravan, listening, Manan, which most people do not do, because you listen to a lecture, you read a book, and then you don't go back to that and chew on the cud. Just like the cow eats some grass, collects it, fills the stomach, and then she sits down under a tree or somewhere and brings it out and chews the cud. Okay, chews it and makes finer and finer and finer so that it can be digested, sort of. So that chewing the cud of the spiritual knowledge that we have, thinking about it, what does it really mean? How do I transform that information that was received into some knowledge, and that knowledge can again be personalized and applied into my everyday life so that I am enriched by that wisdom and knowledge. Now, that is a process that every individual has to do. And those who are able to do it, you'll find that they're more enlightened, so to say, in that, working in that light of that knowledge, and their behavior, their desires, their wishes, their actions become slightly reorganized and aligned with that higher ideal, so to say, which is what the knowledge tries to give. In this case, it's the idea of freedom of the soul. So we have to do that. How often? As much as possible. But morning and evening, sincerely if we do, and then try to keep an undercurrent of it in our everyday, in the midst of different activities, a part of the mind is hooked to that idea of what is being taught in the scriptures. And again, of course, the mind, when it goes and gets busy with various activities in the society, in the world, it gets a little bit of polluted, so to say. So when you go out and you get dirty, come and take a bath. Likewise, the mind also gets polluted with all these various ideas about this material world. And we have to give it a spiritual bath, so to say. And that's where we come back into a little bit of spiritual practices, meditating on the true nature of the Atman. Shravan, Manan. That is second stage, is Manan. That we have to consciously try to do. And if you do that, you'll find that it's a very empowering process. It keeps your mind sort of detached from the things outside. Yes? And so many things are in our control in the external world. Many things are not in our control. Sometimes it's absolutely not in our control, just like in this pandemic situation. Everything is totally disrupted. I can't don't have much freedom at all, so to say. Even physically, I have sometimes been asked to be locked out. Okay. So, but the inner freedom is not being curtailed. So as you have that greater anchor within ourselves, deeper, then outside changes will disturb us less. We'll have more poise and balance. And that itself is a self-empowering thing. And nididhyasan is meditating deeply with the idea of really having that experience. We don't want to have some philosophies to live by. Man cannot live in words. He needs to have an experience. It's good to know about certain things which are pleasant, and we say we can keep on talking to you about how beautiful honey tastes and ice cream tastes, or milk is how healthy it is for your body. But unless you drink it and digest it, you will not understand what what's the whole idea about consuming milk for strength? So likewise, knowledge comes to us as information through the books. We have to process it and churn it into applied practical knowledge, and then that should become an experience. So if there's an Atman, I should see it. If it's a God, I should be able to communicate with it. What is his nature? Is he a being somewhere out there like many people think? In the beginning, in the garden of spirituality, many people think there's a being out there somewhere who has created this universe separate from him, and he has got it rolling, and he has sort of maybe sometimes forgotten us how we are doing things. Okay, and he is sometimes, very, very strict. If you do all the good things, he'll take you to heaven. If you don't do so well, he'll barbecue you in hell. That type of kindergarten idea of God doesn't meet the young generation. They will not be able to accept that. So in ignorance, man thinks God is out there. When knowledge comes, we understand he is not some being out there. He is that consciousness inside me here and now. And that is very, very empowering. Now I am in direct contact with him. Actually, I exist because he exists. Or that because of that infinite existence, out of that the mind has come, my mind and my body has come. So I exist because of his existence. This body and mind is conscious because of that universal consciousness that's behind it. Just like the wave, millions of waves are there on the surface of the ocean. The ocean has to exist first. Then waves can come, not vice versa. So suddenly that cosmic being, which we call the universal consciousness, here is God, so to say. And I am a part of that, a limited part of it, made of the same substance. Both are water, the ocean and the wave. The difference is the ocean is infinite, the wave is finite. But we are connected. I'm not floating on my own in the sky. So those people who don't believe in God and who say they're atheists, I say that the flying waves out there, no ocean, just in the sky I am there. That doesn't make sense. But those who are more rational can understand that you can't have that type of situation. If there is a consciousness in me, I'll track it down and try to find what's the source of it. And then, just like the physical scientists are there, Newton, Einstein, when they did research and came out with certain facts for the scientific community to validate, and we accept it, even though we have not experienced these things ourselves. How many have seen an electron, a proton, even a virus? But we accept it because of the authority and the trust and faith in the words of these people whom we feel are not taking us for a ride, and they have rigorous ways of verification. So spiritual knowledge is exactly like that. It doesn't ask us to believe in something. Actually, it discourages us to believe in something. Do not simply nod the head and say, yes, yes, yes. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. Read it, utilize your head, reason it, argue with it until you come to that settled conviction. Then drop everything, he says, and dive deep into it and meditate on it and realize it. Religion is realization. It is not subscribing to any particular faith, any particular belief, any particular prophet, or swearing by any particular book. No, those are secondary details. You can use them if you wish, if they can help you in that path. But the truth is not in the book. The truth is not in the temple. The truth is not out there. The truth is inside us. These are some mirrors in which we can see ourselves and say, that's a reflection of me. The clearer the mirror, the better the reflection. The higher, the better is the quality of the scripture, and you say, what they teach gels with me, I like it. Basically, you are resonating with the idea that's within you. And so, that's how we try to go deeper and deeper and deeper into ourselves. So, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasa. These are the disciplines that we must practice. This wall of ignorance that binds us in the society and individually binds us has to be transcended. Sri Ramakrishna says this sense of I and mine, I and the body, and all this that's listed in our biodata and CV and everything, and mine, our attachment to things of this world, whether it's this physical body, my house, my car, money, my relatives, my name, my position, my citizenship, my color, all this type of my things. This is what is the source of bondage. And this is the cage that the lion has to break to escape and come out. So how do we do it? Well, we talked about the idea of transformation, making a change from where what we are to something else. It's a metamorphosis. Okay, just like we know a butterfly is like a little larva in the beginning. So it eats the various leaves and becomes healthy, and then it goes through another stage where it builds itself a little cocoon and goes inside it and goes through a transformation. And if the transformation is successful, it comes out something totally different. If you did not know that the process, and you told somebody this caterpillar became this butterfly, says that's crazy. How can that be? They don't look at all in any way. But it is true because science and through our observation we know. That transformation has to happen for man to become divine. Alright. So unless we are ready to shake off the limited existence of our humanity, we will not be able to manifest that divinity. In an individual, these three forces are there, three possibilities there: animality, humanity, divinity. And you will find that some people are there who are just happy with eating, drinking, making merry, no higher thought, no higher ambition, no thinking, almost like an animal existence. In men, we have got this gift of reasoning, feeling, emotion at a heightened degree, logical thinking, analysis, questioning, answering, and all that. So, all this, that's why this 5 foot, 6 foot being is the king of this planet. It rules because he has got this higher mental power, bigger brain, so to say. But this is not the whole of it. There is something more that's possible that can happen, and that is the transformation of the man into divine. And to do that, one must transcend the lower nature, only then the higher nature will manifest. One must give the larva nature, only then the butterfly will come out of it. You can't have both of it. Okay. So in our Hindu scriptures and all that, you see there are so many gods and goddesses you'll find. And you'll be amazed that all of them have some animal that they ride on. It might be some crazy, huge Ganesha is riding a small mouse. Logically, that doesn't make sense. How can somebody physically so big have a little mouse as his vehicle? Or Shiva is riding the bull and the Divine Mother is riding the tiger or the lion, or Kartika is riding the peacock. Anyway, all of them have some animal as a vehicle. What it means is that one must subdue and control and transcend our animal nature, only then the divine nature will manifest. But if we do not do that, then potentially we are divine, not an experience. So scriptures will tell us that there are don'ts and there are do's. Do these things which will uplift us. They are morally and ethically upright. And don't do these things which is called adharma, so to say, prohibitions, because they will drag the mind down and get it entangled and deeply and attached to this physical body and the material world. So it cannot lift itself up. And when we follow those disciplines very strictly, you'll find that the anchoring, the things that are tying us down, will automatically begin to weaken, and you'll feel that a hot air balloon, you're putting a lot of gas into that, the balloon is trying to rise up there, and slowly you'll understand that if you don't cut the ropes that are holding it down, the balloon, no matter how much of sadhana and tapasya you're doing, unless you renunciation means disconnecting yourself from this mental attachment, so to say, the balloon is not going to rise. But if you let go, then it floats high up, and from there the view is breathtaking compared to what is available to us at the ground level. So that transformation, that change has to be there. First, we should have a desire to rise. Why? Because there we have the greater degree of freedom, greater knowledge, actually infinite knowledge. Akhand Sat Chit Ananda. Infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. That is in words as much as they have been able to express and say, this is all we can say, but it's even better than that, because in that high state of experience, the mind itself dissolves. But we can give you some idea what is it like. And you say, compared to my limited existence here, 50 years, 70 years, 100 years, maybe 110 years also, and then we'll have to go. Okay, not more than that. Limited knowledge. You might be the most smartest person around and have so much knowledge, but the more you know, you understand there's so little we know. Even great scientists like Newton said, we have been collecting a few pebbles on the ocean on the shore of knowledge that is there. And infinite bliss is there compared to little enjoyments that we have. Now that is our divine nature. And if you want it, it's available to us, but at what cost? What's the price we have to pay? We have to give up this imitation world, this low level. And we are doing that all the time. You see, if you have a job and somebody comes and offers you a better job with a higher pay, you very happily give that job and say, thank you very much, I'm resigning, going for another one. If you have what you might say, a ordinary car and somebody comes and gives you a Rolls Royce, he says, please take this car away, because you are always getting better. So if we understand in the depths of our mind that this Atman, the self, is the best that is there, then naturally we will be happy to say goodbye to these smaller things, so to say, in exchange for that. But you have to work for that. You have to, because it's not that you will get it or somebody will give to you. It is there already. But we have to develop the capacity of our mind to experience that and to be able to hold that experience of what we really are. Okay, so it's a transformation of that butterfly into that butterfly, so to say, because that's where the freedom is. The butterfly can float and fly in everywhere. It can drink the beautiful nectar of the flowers and all those things. Those things will happen if we have that freedom and not constrained to crawling on a leaf and eating that leaf only. That's what we are doing. So let that idea possess us, that idea of freedom. Take one idea, sleep on it, dream on it, eat it, and let it run through our veins and through our thought process and everything until that idea becomes alive, so to say. And that idea will then, the idea of freedom, because that's somehow built into our nature. And then you'll find that it is available to you all the time. It's there. A part of the mind is anchored to that. And your energies, your activities will begin to realign themselves. Things that were so interesting before will not be so interesting. That's the price we have to pay. Socializing with friends and going out to the picnic, and if you have a long Easter weekend, you might say, I would rather go into a quiet place and live a little bit of contemplative life and give that some time, me time, so to say, as they say, rather than just being busy and trying to keep everyone happy and not attending to myself. Your friends might say, oh, that person is now not much fun anymore. Previously he used to come and join in all the things that we used to do with all the zeal, and nowadays he's sort of indifferent and he's not showing so much interest. You have to be ready to lose those such people. And in turn you will get some other friends who will be more aligned to your new pursuit, who will be whose company you will enjoy because it is intellectually and spiritually more stimulating. Now you should be ready for that also. So there has to be some change in our environment and what we do, how we do in terms of our jobs and associations and social life and everything. And we give a little bit more time to that most important thing in our life, why we are here. Okay, we are here. The purpose of life is self-realization, God-realization, or freedom, whichever way you want to express it. And a person says, I'm going to commit some time, at least daily, 15-20 minutes, half an hour of meditation, morning and evening. I'll give some time to reading scriptures rather than surfing the internet and gossiping about what's happening in politics or in the community or what the virus is doing in different parts of the world, that's all useless information. I don't have anything to do with that, or that has anything much to do with me. Give something, be practical, give the time and effort to something that is relevant to our life. So that type of reorganization and re-engineering is necessary. Unless we do this type of things, all these beautiful ideas will be nice ideas. And you'll say, I know this, I've read that book and I've read this scripture and it's all very nice. But has that touched you, and have you been benefited by it in any way? Just like, I know milk is very good, it's very, very nourishing, but did you drink the milk? Did you feel the energy coming out of it? No, but I know milk is very good. That type of talking is not going to be much help. So we have to jump into this heart and soul and take up those spiritual practices. So in the process, in the beginning, first stage of the process is to get acquainted with this idea, Shravan Mana, this idea of the Atma, that behind this body, or subtler than this physical body, is a mind. Subtler than that is a intelligence or knowledge level, and behind that is something called pure consciousness. I am really that pure consciousness, and being born means getting embodied, and these are the three bodies or three levels of my being. There is the causal body, then the subtle body, and then physical bodies there, all three. Physical bodies are just like clothes we wear and take off. So when we are born, we put on a jacket. It might be a white jacket or brown jacket or black jacket, but it's only a jacket, it's not me. And that means I take it off. Now that means, of course, there are three levels, three bodies we put. So physical death means 1/3 death. 2/3 are still remaining because these other bodies are there. And because we have this idea of this world is a beautiful place and I want to enjoy here, that desire will again force us to come into this world. And until we overcome that desire to be born again, it will force us back into this physical world again and again. So, but behind that is the mental body. That also has to be got rid of. And then this causal body. We are a bodiless being. We are no body. Because body means confinement. It's blocking. Some obstruction is there. It limits us. While we are the unlimited being. So when we understand that, then we will not try to make too much big deal about ourselves as individuals. Individual word means indivisible. We are indivisible as the self, not as the body. We are infinite as the ocean, not as the wave. And trying to say, I want to make the wave infinite, it's crazy. Well, some people try to do that. They try to build a big wave, huge wave, by taking more and more time to the... yes, you might be a richer person, more educated person and all those things, but a wave, no matter how big, is a wave only. The other way is to merge yourself into that ocean. And suddenly you discover how deep and how vast and how profound you are. That is the path of devotion or surrender, knowing that really that ocean is the source of what we are. That God is not an external being, but that inner consciousness that is within all of us. Now, this is a very nice idea. You might say that's a very nice idea, Swamiji. Somewhere deep inside is that consciousness, and I like that idea. But when I will reach it and when I will experience that, we do not know. It seems to be too far, too remote, so difficult to get. So, and can we have an idea of it here and now? Give me something practical. I want a living God. Well, the God of Vedanta is really the most living God of all beings, because we are right now conscious because of that consciousness. So I see this table. This table is seen in and through that consciousness. If I were not conscious, if I were asleep, will I see this table? I would not. Because I am awake. That consciousness is the light which illumines this table to me. So I am present and ever connected with that consciousness of the soul. Actually, it is the Atman which illumines everything. By its light, everything is illumined, but we are not aware of it. We are not aware of it. We think the physical body is seeing, the eyes are seeing, and the mind is seeing. But behind these eyes and the mind is that consciousness whose light is illumining. And when that consciousness is not there, then this body is just there lying there asleep, or it might be in coma, or it might be dead also. Likewise, everything, the knowledge that we feel, the sense of freedom that we feel, the activity that I feel, I'm doing all these various things. I'm talking, you're listening, people are doing all wonderful things. Okay. If that power that's inside is not working, suddenly it collapses and is a dead person. Alright, somebody is so beautiful, you love the child or whatever relative is there, because you see some expression of some good sentiments and that's attractive. When that same person, if in that same person that consciousness departs, you don't go and hug a dead body and say, I love you so much and all that. So what was it that you loved? Did you love the physical body, or there was something inside, but you did not know, nonetheless it was there, and that having departed, this body is not so much attractive anymore. So that type of reasoning if we do, you'll find that that entity which we call consciousness is God, pervades everything at all times, here and now, and we experience it all the time. Nothing, our own existence is not possible without the existence of that consciousness or God or the Supreme Being Paramatma. Just like the existence of the wave is not possible without the existence of the ocean. Every manifestation of power, either at the physical level or the mental level or intellectual level, will not be possible without that infinite power that is within us. So here we are, just feeling that and becoming aware of that aspect of the divine which penetrates and pervades every aspect of this world, so to say, is the immanent God. Of course, the absolute way, there's no ocean, there's no activity, there's no creation, preservation and destruction, where it's absolute calmness, where it's the potential energy form of it. That's called Brahman. Nameless, formless, actionless. That's one side of the coin. The same ocean can just become absolutely calm without a single wave. So if it so wishes. But then the same ocean breaks into waves. And these waves are what? These waves are this universe. These waves are these galaxies and solar systems and planets like Earth. And on that planet, there are things like man and plants and animals and minerals and gods and all those things. These are waves and wavelets of the same ocean. Each one of them manifesting the power of the ocean in different degree. Somewhere the manifestation is more, somewhere is less. But all are anchored at that same reality. And we are all part of that same ocean. Apparently, as waves, we are different. And we might divide those waves, and this is Pacific Ocean, this is Indian Ocean, and this other ocean, and all this Tasman Sea, and that type of sea. We say, likewise, say this is a Indian, this is a European, and then we might divide according to some faith line. This is Muslim or Hindu or Christian. We might divide it according to some color line. It's a white or brown or black. And because of all this very, very superficial differentiations, criteria that we use, we fight with each other. You can't come into my country, or this is not for you, or this is not for me. And then we fight with each other literally, and in the name of religion there's so much dissension and hatred, and even sometimes bloodshed is there, because we are all anchored at that wave level. We have not dived deep to understand that behind all the waves is the same ocean. So spirituality, true spirituality, is about not saying you are of a different faith and I am of a different faith, or discriminating on the basis of external colors and things. True spirituality is going beyond this, diving deep into the ocean and discovering that it's one ocean that exists, and that ocean manifests itself in different ways. There's a one behind the many. These two ideas, the divinity of the soul and oneness of existence, are the pillars of Vedanta. Okay, Vedanta means the culmination of all spiritual knowledge. All the spiritual seeking are recorded in the Vedas. There are two sections of the Vedas. This is for the very beginners. The earlier sections were to do more with the rituals and ceremonies and rites and yajnas with the idea of going to heaven and all that. Later on in the last section of the final section, it is the Jnana Kanda, this knowledge portion in which the subject matter is the divinity of man and the divinity of that universal being behind the universe, and they say the two are not different. They're made of the same substance. The ocean and the wave are ever connected. One is limited, which is us, and the ocean is that Brahman, and the two are ever connected, made of the same substance, but the ocean is permanent, the waves appear and disappear. So, how do we re-engage and reconnect and be anchored in our true oneness, so to say, and then out of that fullness, if we come back as a wave, then the whole perspective changes. We don't differentiate on external criteria. We see ourselves in all beings and all beings in us. And that is the basis of the true love and kindness and compassion and sacrifice and all those things that wonderful sentiments that we see in the enlightened souls of Buddha and Christ, because they understood that this vast universe and all beings are part of themselves. And that's why the heart would reach out and feel that so intensely for the suffering of mankind that they are ready to sacrifice their physical body for the good of others. That's that idea of that oneness. Whether we know it or not, the reality is still there. Whether the wave knows about the ocean or not, the ocean is still there. The more enlightened wave will be aware of that knowledge. The ignorant one would think, I'm a flying wave. I don't need a God, I'm an atheist. I don't blame some people, because the old idea of an external, extra cosmic God who has created this world, and we have this carrot and stick type of idea that if you do nice things and please Him, believe on Him, then you go to heaven. And if you get more than 50%, you go heaven. If you get 49%, you get barbecued in hell. That type of idea does not hold ground in this more educated, civilized world. People want something more. But if you talk to them that there is a cosmic consciousness, and that is within us, and all that manifestation of power and knowledge and goodness and freedom and purity and whatever we feel so good about is really a spark of that infinite light. And they said, I'm happy with that. Teach me a method by which I can express that self that more. I don't want to always be afraid of a God there. That's not be full of fear. I want a God that I can love, who responds to me, who's alive, whom I can coordinate and communicate with, and who will empower me. So that type of idea, a more advanced, refined idea of God is what mankind is really looking for. And then he said, you take that idea further and develop it. Ultimately, that consciousness alone exists. All these names and forms are like different waves that arise out of the ocean, are sustained by the ocean, will merge back into the ocean. They will keep on going in every cycle of creation. But the ocean of consciousness is the permanent reality, and we are that. Tattvamasi. And when that realization, that experience takes place, then we have truly transcended death. No more death, no more birth, no more coming, no more going, and you can't even express that profound sense of freedom and joy and knowledge. You are the omniscient, omnipotent one. You are one with the divine being. That is our divine birthright. See, this world is a tremendous tragedy. We are this wonderful being, and look at our plight. In ignorance, we think we are some small miserable wave tossed up from the ocean, floating here at the mercy of the world around us, and then we disappear without meaning, without any purpose. So it's pretty depressing from that point of view. But Vedanta is that this beautiful philosophy which is uplifting, says that is because of ignorance. That's because we think we are a floating wave, so to say. We are orphans. There's no other deeper, higher reality to what we are as an individual, that we experience ourselves here and now. This is just only the tip of the iceberg. Behind that is something profound. So let that idea capture us. The other second point is, so we think about that idea of consciousness, Atman, beyond the body. Then we say, how do we experience it? Yes, we are always in touch with it, here and now. Always we try to keep a part of our mind in our everyday activity. When we do something good, the Ved does not say, I have been very successful. He says, some wonderful power came from the ocean, worked through me, the credit belongs to the ocean. I am only an instrument in the hands of this divine being. That relationship, that connection is there, and therefore you open yourself to more of that energy, more of that knowledge, more of that power, and you see the less the ego becomes, the more the power flows. The sense of I and mine is what is blocking the flow of that energy in us. We talked about creating a potential difference in the last class. There has to be flow. The world is a flow. Everything in this world flows from a higher point to a lower point. So if we say, if spiritual power has to flow from us to us from a spiritual level, then there's a potential difference, just like a potential difference generated by a battery will force the electrons in a wire to flow. And when the electrons flow, they will maybe produce some light or heat or whatever. Otherwise, they're just electrons in a piece of wire. I require a potential difference. So when we create that potential difference, and that here's my mind, the jiva, and here is the Supreme Being, and we have made a connection, that connection comes through that sense of I. Now that I can have a very high resistance, impedance, that will impede the flow of current, so to say, or the flow of grace. So in a person where the ego is very strong, egotistic, there you'll get a little bit of tidbits of trickling of that current flowing through. But if you can reduce the more we can reduce that ego in us, the greater the current is. And if we can make it almost zero, you've got a superconductor. It could be a thin wire, but you will have kiloamperes of current flowing through that. So, in spiritual life, what is that? That's the attitude of a devotee who says, not I, thou, thou, thou. That means the divine is the repository and the source of all the goodness that is experienced flowing through me. I am just a pen. He chooses to write. My job is to let the ink flow. And the beautiful writing and the credit goes to the person who is writing it. Likewise, I am an instrument in the hands of the divine. That is what Sri Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna. Don't think that you are a great warrior. Actually, I am the one residing in your heart, and you are my instrument, and I choose to fight with you. Whether it's victory or defeat, you don't take credit or discredit from it. Just be an instrument. Nimitta matram bhava sabyasachi. Just be an instrument. That means reduce your ego, make it less and less and less. And the more we are successful in reducing that, the greater the flow of that knowledge and beauty, whatever we are seeking, will be there. So this is the path of devotion. The devotee says, I am always in touch with the infinite ocean. I don't have any worries. Whatever is necessary for me will be provided by that. But I will strengthen that relationship and let the divine use this wave, this instrument, as it chooses. I will drift along, be happy with it. Be an instrument. That itself is a discipline to maintain that spirit of surrender and dependence and connection in the midst of all trials and tribulations that life will throw. Sometimes he will put you in one place, in another place. That is his game. But I know that I am under his protection, and whatever is necessary for me will be provided. Even in these painful moments and sufferings we call are there, they are also for my good, because the divine is trying to wake me up from this massive sleep that we are having about the reality of this world and my identity as an individual. So those little painful moments are great teachers, and if we can take that in that stride, then we don't complain. We surrender and we submit ourselves to that. And the divine then, out of this ordinary piece of metal, chisels and cuts and all those things and fashions out a beautiful something that can be admired. So out of this being that we are human being, he can chisel and fashion and make us divine. But we have to submit ourselves to the chisels and all those things of the cutting of the sculpture to be transformed. You can't have the caterpillar and you cannot be the butterfly. That change should be submitted or desired for, and we must go through that process, that flow, for the transformation to happen. Then we will truly realize what we are, and that's where the greater degree of happiness and knowledge and beauty and freedom and all those things are there. When we become mad after that idea that this should happen to us not over many, many lifetimes, but in this life itself, and I'm going to drop everything and make them secondary, and this becomes the primary goal of life, freedom. I must get it here and now, if possible. When that idea takes possession of us, then you will find there will be some changes in the reorganizing of our activities and thoughts and words and deeds and everywhere. And when that is happening, then you can say the line is waking up. In the Upanishads, Swami Vivekananda used to say, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Uttisthata jagrata prakyavaranibodhata. So that is the whole purpose of all these institutions that we have. Okay, temples and churches and discourses and prayers and rituals and ceremonies and festivals is somehow to awaken that idea of freedom or spiritual awakening that will take us further. If that is happening, good. If not, and you say, I've been doing this ritual and ceremony and observing this festival for 20 years and 30 years, but I'm still in the same place like when I was a 10-year-old child, then maybe the medicine is not going and it's not working within our body. So sometimes it's good to step back, reflect on life, what we are doing, why we are doing, how we are doing, and then you'll find less the external white noise settle away, and you'll find the most important thing should become the most important thing in our life, which is the idea of self-realization. Let me put a little story for you to think over in this next week. There was a university professor. One day he came to the class and brought a few items that he put on the table in front, and the students watched. So he took a big empty jar and he asked the students, what is it? So this is an empty jar. Then he brought out a bag with little stones in it, and he filled the jar with the stones, and he asked them, what is it? They said, this is a jar full of stones. Then he brought out another bag with some smaller pebbles and put it in the jar and shook it and asked. So the students then said, this is a jar full of stones and pebbles, but full. Then it brought out some fine gravel, added that and shook it, and they all went in and filled in the small gaps in there. And he asked the same question. They said, this time they're becoming a little bit careful about using the word full. Then he brought out a bag of sand and put the sand in there, shook it and filled it. So then they say, yes, now it is full. Then he brought a glass of water. He poured the water into it. So every time he added something, and previously people thought it was full, but he managed to put a few more things until he said it's full. So he asked him, well, what do you think is the moral of the story, the message I'm trying to communicate to you? And the students thought hard and somebody says, no, sir. You see, if we manage our time, because now everyone is so much focused on time management, we are so busy and there's so many things we want to do. It's all about reorganizing and all those things so we can do more, get more out of our 24 hours of life. So say, if we manage ourselves very nicely, we'll always find some more thing we can do in our everyday life. Initially it was all the big stones and the pebbles and the gravel and sand, and see, every time if we manage it, we can put more and get more out of our life. The professor said, no, that is not what I have been trying to do. So I would like you to think about it over this next week, and when we meet next time, we will try to understand and see what ideas are coming in your mind. What is the message? Before we end today, there's an announcement here. Next Sunday, which is the 5th of June, we will be celebrating Guru Purnima here. And the program is from 10:30 a.m. in the morning to 12:30 p.m. We'll have the puja, bhajans, and a little discourse and prasada. Because of the restrictions on gatherings, a maximum of 100 people can only gather here. And those who would like to attend this program next Sunday, we request you to please go to the Vedanta Brisbane website and register your name. There's a link given there, trybooking.com. So if you are one of those 100 people, because of we are compliant with the requirements here, those who are very keen to be part of that observation or the function are requested to please book yourself, and we look forward to seeing you here. And those who would not be able to join us physically, of course, you can join us online and be part of the programs. So, we'll see you next Sunday. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.